the secret inside the place where Ukraine's gunpowder-free weapon was developed. In an office building on the outskirts of the city of Zaporizhzhia, Ukrainian soldiers are researching what they say is a decisive weapon, in an effort to push the Russian army out of the territory. This weapon glows from more than 10 computer screens, providing continuous updates on the battlefield situation in the south. Just one click on the program, the map on the computer will be marked with countless orange diamonds, showing the locations where Russia deployed troops. The map also reveals where Russia keeps its tanks, artillery, detailed information about combat units and enemy soldiers, gathered from social networks. When clicking on another location, the program will show bright red arrows all over the southern Zaporizhzhia area, showing the momentum of the Russian units. Zooming in on the satellite image shows the entire terrain in sharp detail. This weapon is called Delta, a piece of software developed by Ukrainian programmers to give the country's armed forces an advantage in a competition to determine which side can observe the war. Clearer field, thereby predicting the opponent's moves and launching attacks faster and more accurately. The conflict in Ukraine from the beginning has witnessed a mixture of classical and modern elements. Many battles are reminiscent of World War I with a dense network of trenches. But this is also a place to test many advanced weapons, contributing to defining the context of future wars. The information that soldiers receive from modern equipment is said to play an important role in determining their success or failure. Vitaly, a computer expert at the Defense Technology Development and Innovation Center of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, said, "The biggest difference between the Russian army and the Ukrainian army is the horizontal alignment between the Russian army and the Ukrainian army." Units. The office complex in Zaporizhzhia has a situational awareness center, among the 6 that the Ukrainian armed forces have established on various fronts. A 7th center is being set up in Donbass. The center in Zaporizhzhia, sponsored by a local businessman, has had to change locations several times for security and logistical reasons. The center will be moved to a permanent headquarters, set up underground with full equipment this December. Delta software is operated by Ukraine's Innovation Hub, staffed mainly by a volunteer organization of drone programmers called Aeroroзвydka, Aerial Reconnaissance. "These are not employees from the Ministry of Defense," said Tatiana, an official at the Innovation Center. "They come from the private sector. They were mobilized to serve in the army. This team created Delta with their own hands and brains because of their experience in rapid software development. The creative process is a closed circle." Aeroroзвydka programmers started developing Delta software in 2015 and introduced it to NATO member countries by the end of October 2022. This software has been replicated at an increasing scale over the past 4 years. The interior of the Zaporizhzhia Center resembles a computer science training facility rather than a military unit. The only person to wear a military uniform was an intelligence officer, called Sergeant Shlomo. At the end of the corridor is an open-source intelligence department, OSINT, where agents are going through a series of social media posts by Russian soldiers, extracting their dates and locations and then provide the results to Delta. In addition, Delta also receives other information from satellite images provided by NATO partners or from unmanned reconnaissance aircraft. All that information is fed into the battlefield map, stored directly for users to access through the Starlink app. On the screen, Melitopol has the largest concentration of orange diamond markers and red arrows, showing the presence of Russian soldiers. "Now we have somewhat guessed their route. They are using Melitopol as a major logistics hub and we are trying to understand the real purpose of moving their troops," Shlomo said. Currently, Ukrainian engineers are looking for traces of Russian tanks and mobile pontoon bridges, signs that could foreshadow an impending attack. Each day, the Situational Awareness Center must summarize all the latest information, summarize and discuss the conclusions reached at the meeting at 6 p.m. Innovation Center officials explained that the Donbass front was the last front to establish a situational awareness center due to a lack of coordination between forces and due to intense skirmishes. A NATO report on November 30 on Ukraine's Delta program said the software has not yet been officially adopted by the Ukrainian armed forces and is therefore not in widespread use. Now Ukraine's Innovation Center is asking Western arms sponsors to provide software that will allow new weapon systems to be seamlessly connected to Delta. Shlomo emphasized, Integrating battlefield information in the army through Delta software is a race that Ukraine must win. The story we are writing could change the course of the war, he said. Our weapon is the computer. Our bullet is information. Germany transfers anti-aircraft weapons to Ukraine's neighbors, condemns Iran for something related to Russia. On December 19, German Defense Minister Christine Lambrecht announced continued air defense support for Slovakia. On the same day, Berlin also raised its position on Iran's transfer of weapons to Russia related to the conflict in Ukraine. According to an announcement in Bratislava by German Defense Minister Christine Lambrecht and her Slovak counterpart Jaroslav Nad, Berlin is committed to providing air defense weapons to partners, including the Mantis short-range defense system, expected to be deployed. Located in eastern Slovakia, near Ukraine. The system will also help protect a vehicle and weapons overhaul center built in Mykolaiv, a town just a few kilometers from the Ukrainian border. It is expected that German weapons worn out or damaged during the war in Ukraine will be repaired at the center. Minister Lambrecht has not yet provided specific information on the deployment of the Mantis defense system, and said that a solution will be quickly released regarding some technical details. Recently, the German side has handed over the first of 15 Leopard tanks committed to Slovakia. The symbolic handover ceremony was held in Bratislava in the presence of Mrs. Lambrecht and Mr. Jaroslav Nad. Earlier, Slovakia delivered 30 Soviet-made BMP-1 infantry fighting vehicles to Ukraine as part of an exchange program between Germany and Slovakia. Rheinmetall Group plans to deliver the remaining 14 Leopard tanks to Slovakia by the end of 2023. Slovak soldiers have been trained in Germany to use these tanks. On the same day, during a meeting at the United Nations Security Council, German ambassador to the United Nations Antje spoke out criticizing Iran's transfer of weapons to Russia to Moscow, and these weapons appeared in the conflict. In Ukraine, German media quoted Antje as saying that Iran's unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, created more opportunities for Russia. At the same time, the German ambassador asked the Secretary-General of the United Nations to accept Kiev's invitation to conduct a field investigation into the evidence related to Iran's role in the conflict in this country. Relating to Iran's nuclear program with Tehran's continued enrichment of uranium, Ms. Leendertse emphasized that Iran's nuclear program is more advanced than ever and is becoming a threat to peace and security. International